The pen stilled between my fingers the moment my phone vibrated. One glance, and I nearly dropped it altogether. Morgan, don't come to Thanksgiving this year. Tyler thinks you bring tension. It's better if you sit this one out. Mom. It was a single message, but it hit like a punch. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. A prank. Tyler, my sister's husband of barely a month, the man who thought upgrading from customer support to team lead made him Elon Musk, he'd decided I brought tension. Maybe I did. Maybe that's what happens when confident women walk into rooms built for insecurity. But I didn't reply, I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. Instead, I calmly placed the pen down, flipped my phone face down, and turned to my assistant. Let's move the Ridgeview vendor meeting to tomorrow, I said, voice steady. I need the rest of the day. Because when people try to push me out, I don't chase them, and I don't explain myself. I move. I'm Morgan Hayes, age 31, Division Director at Falcon Ridge Real Estate Group, the youngest woman in the company's 20-year history to manage a portfolio worth more than $500 million. But my family, they think I do something in real estate, like I sell 2-bedroom homes and rely on Zillow. Years ago, I stopped trying to explain the late nights, the billion-dollar acquisition deals, the entire departments reporting to me. It wasn't just that they didn't understand, it's that they never bothered to ask. This message from Mom, it wasn't the first push. It was just the loudest one. My sister, Brittany, has always worn the crown. The golden child, the one with the wide smiles, big birthdays, and Pinterest-perfect engagement photos. I was the other one, too direct, too driven, too different. I've worked every holiday since I was 26, not because I wanted to, but because showing up half-loved at your family table is lonelier than being in an empty boardroom. But Tyler, now that was a twist. He was flashy, the sort who needed the room's attention just to breathe, the kind who talked loud to feel tall. He constantly pushed stories about his so-called corporate wins, though no one had seen him read a financial report in his life. Apparently, I was too threatening, too smart, successful. Tyler didn't realize the world I built outside family dinners. But he was about to. That night, I stayed at the office until midnight. Projects needed approval. The Skyline proposal needed an executive breakdown. I ran cost simulations, signed off on third-tier subcontractors, and reviewed architecture feedback for a groundbreaking tower set to break records in the city skyline. Every report reminded me why I did this. This was where I was heard, where I was understood. Not tolerated, trusted. When I finally stepped into the midnight quiet elevator, I looked out over the lit skyline and whispered to myself, "You don't need a seat at a table that shrinks to make you fit." The next morning, the office was its usual beast. Buzzing phones, 3 back-to-back morning meetings, a dozen unread C-suite emails. Jenna, my assistant, handed me a folder as she always did. Morgan, the Skyline contractor's late. They forgot their security keycard, so... She stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened in a way that immediately made me sit up. Turning slowly, I saw him. There, standing like he'd accidentally walked into enemy territory, was Tyler. Red in the face, sweating, mouth slightly open in horror. He stepped into my office like a man who had just found himself inside the wrong movie. Do you work here?" he stammered, voice cracking. I leaned back in my chair, calm, powered, perfectly composed. "I run 3 divisions here," I replied evenly. "So yes, I believe that qualifies." He looked confused, terrified. "You're the boss." He said it like he couldn't physically process the words. And in that moment, I saw it, the exact second his fantasy cracked. He thought I was, showing apartments to college kids, handling leases for retirees. Not this, not marble floors and office 2 stories up, and employees briefing me on multi-million-dollar builds. "Why are you here, Tyler?" I asked, tone razor-sharp. He swallowed hard. "Brittany said you might be connected to someone that you could help us get funding." I raised an eyebrow. So you came to the person you tried to cut out to beg for a favor. He recoiled. I didn't mean that text too. Yes, you did, I cut him off. You meant it because you wanted me out of the way. You didn't anticipate I had something of my own. He said nothing. No words, just silence thick with realization. And regret. You told my mother I shouldn't come to Thanksgiving, I continued, because I ruined the vibe. You didn't ruin anything, but congratulations, Tyler, you just found out who you were trying to pop out of the family. He turned ghost white as dozens of employees passed the glass door behind him, all of them showing the world he clearly didn't understand. You can't do this, he muttered suddenly. Do what? Not help your family. I stood slowly, heels clicking like punctuation. I don't support people who repeatedly try to belittle me. Suddenly he shouted, Do you know who I am? I smiled faintly. Yes, you're the man who tried to block my seat at dinner. Tyler's face stayed red, blotchy, and tight like someone had just handed him a mirror and he didn't like what he saw. You're the boss, he repeated, still stuck. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. I oversee 3 divisions, I said plainly. So yes, I'm the boss to about 140 people in this building. He stumbled in, eyes darting between my high-rise office view, the Falcon Ridge Real Estate Group brass logo behind my desk, and the executive-level energy humming through every corner of the space. It was like everything he assumed about me, every belittling comment he'd so casually said to Brittany, every time he dismissed me in passing, was now sitting in a leather chair calling the shots. But I wasn't gloating, I wasn't angry, that takes too much energy. I was simply done being small for people who saw themselves as big only when they made others feel small. Tyler inhaled sharply like he couldn't breathe. I came because, Brittany told me her sister might be able to help us. We need a loan, something to jumpstart the investment side of this app I've been building. There it was. The pitch. He didn't come to apologize, he came to use me. I sat back in my chair, threading my fingers together slowly. You thought convincing my mother to uninvite me from Thanksgiving would butter me up for a business deal. He winced. No, it wasn't like that, I didn't know you were. What exactly didn't you know? I asked, tone sharper now. That I had a career, a life, that I sit in meetings you'd only get into as someone's guest. That shut him up. He looked down at the floor like it could swallow him. Jenna, my assistant, appeared behind him like a whisper, brows raised. Should I call security? I shook my head. Tyler wasn't a threat, he was just a fraud caught in his own assumptions. He didn't try to hide his desperation. That's the thing about men like Tyler, arrogance only works when no one challenges it. I didn't know who you were, he said softly, almost like it pained him to admit. No, I corrected, you didn't bother to find out. He stood there, crimson-faced, still sweating, still trying to figure out how the woman he thought he dismissed had the power to dismiss him. I came here to talk, he started again, not to argue. Then you should have called, I replied sharply, tried respect before strategy, but you skipped that part. He stared at the glass walls surrounding my office, the visibility of the power sitting just behind me, teams meeting, managers preparing pitch decks, interns racing through tasks. My world. The one he never saw coming. Tyler tried again. Can't you help us just talk to someone in investments? Not for me, for Brittany. Ah, the guilt card, the family card. He was playing whatever he had left. But I was done playing. I don't mix business with people who try to erase me when it's convenient, I said, rising to my feet, and I especially don't mix business with people who disrespect me in front of my family. His face flushed deeper. You can't do this, he said, voice cracking. Do you know who I am? I laughed quietly. I do. You're the man who didn't want me at Thanksgiving, and now you're standing in my office begging for a favor. He stared, chest rising, fists tightening like he wanted to scream something nasty. Instead, he cracked. Not with words, with rage. One loud, guttural cry of frustration, like a wounded animal. The entire floor stopped what they were doing. Every head turned. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You embarrassed me. I didn't even raise my voice. No, I said, you embarrassed yourself. He turned, stormed out the office doors so hard they rattled against the hinges. Jenna stepped back in, wide-eyed. Well, she said, blinking, that was dramatic. I finally exhaled. You have no idea, I whispered, and this is only the beginning. Things didn't go quiet after that. They got louder in a different way. The office floor resumed its rhythm, phones ringing, keyboards tapping, but energy buzzed with curiosity. No one said anything openly, but everyone had seen the scene. It was impossible not to. But I didn't explain. I didn't need to. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Brittany. Of course. At first, I considered ignoring it, but I picked up anyway. She jumped in without a hello. Morgan, what did you do to Tyler? He just got home and he's furious. I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. He came to my office without a meeting, demanded money, screamed in front of 30 people, and then stormed out. Silence. Then you could have been nicer. The words knocked loose a sound I hadn't heard in a while, a short, disbelieving laugh. I'm sorry, I said. He's feeling overwhelmed, he says you talk down to people. No, Brittany, I said, quieter now. He just doesn't like women who are comfortable being bigger than he is. Another pause, this one heavier. He thinks you're judgmental, she whispered, that you're intimidating. I closed my eyes. Britt, maybe he finds me intimidating because he underestimates everyone around him. That's not my fault. She didn't respond. Just hung up. I sat there a moment, holding my phone, letting the silence settle into realization. They didn't reject me because I was a problem. They rejected me because I didn't fit the version of me they were comfortable with, the quiet, second-best daughter who worked too hard and had no real life. They didn't know what to do with a version of Morgan that couldn't be dismissed. Later that evening, as I wrapped up revisions on our Skyline project's final architectural renderings, Jenna walked in holding a thick envelope. This came by private courier, she said, from legal, marked confidential. I opened it. Inside, a formal background report. At the top, Tyler Morris. And below that, requested by your mother. I blinked. My mother, I asked. Jenna nodded awkwardly. Yeah, it has her name signed for the request. I skimmed the file, my heart dropped. Mountains of debt. Credit card defaults, loan applications, bank accounts flagged for suspicious activity, a failed tech startup, a second secret business account under Brittany's name. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, a note. I didn't know who else to ask. If he hurts Brittany financially, please protect her. I stared at those words, breath knocked clean from my chest. It wasn't me Mom didn't trust. It was Tyler she feared. And she didn't know how to tell me. They hadn't pushed me away to protect Brittany from me. They were trying, clumsily, wrongly, to keep the peace, and they were afraid I'd ignite it all with the truth. Too late for that. Truth had already arrived. And I had the folder in my hands to prove it. The folder sat in front of me like it was burning. Tyler Morris, background report. Requested by Elaine Hayes, my mother. It still didn't feel real. I'd spent hours defending myself from Brittany's calls, from my own quiet second-guessing. only to find out that the person who told me to stay away from Thanksgiving had, behind the scenes, been digging into the man she'd asked me to avoid. Why? Maybe because some part of her knew. Maybe she always knew. But still, instead of warning Brittany or calling me, she'd gambled on silence. What the file contained was worse than I expected. Tyler wasn't just in debt, he was drowning. Dozens of small loans, maxed-out credit cards, a tech business that failed before it even launched, payments missed, letters ignored, lawsuits avoided, and then there it was near the bottom. Application filed for a private investment loan using Brittany Morris's name. Status, under review, documents forged. He wasn't just desperate. He was dangerous. He wasn't planning for their future, he was trying to cover up his past with hers. And worst of all, he was gutting her without her even knowing. Then I saw the note. A handwritten slip almost hidden in the back of the file. Rushed, panicked. I didn't know who else to ask. If he hurts Brittany financially, please protect her. Mom. My breath caught as I read it again, and again, and again. She didn't say, tell Brittany. She said, protect. She wasn't warning me because she didn't trust me. She was warning me in her own twisted, self-silencing way. And maybe this wasn't her plan, maybe she wasn't expecting me to be the one to read it. But she should have known. Because what she didn't have the courage to say out loud, I was more than ready to handle. By 7:15 that night, I was in the car. The folder lay on the passenger seat, sealed tight, heavy with truth. I wasn't going there to blow up their lives or pick a fight. That's not how I fight. I was going there to finish this. Because Tyler thought his outburst in my office was the end of the line, his lowest moment, his undoing. But it was. That was just the preview. I pulled onto the quiet cul-de-sac where Brittany and Tyler lived, the same cozy 2-story house my mom bragged about last Christmas. The yard was spotless, porch lights glowing, smelled like cinnamon and fake perfection. From the outside, it looked peaceful. Inside, it was anything but. I walked up the driveway. Before I could even raise a hand to knock, the door flew open. And there he was. Tyler, breathing like he'd just sprinted a mile, panic in his eyes the moment he saw me. You can't be here, he said, instantly blocking the entrance. I tilted my head, calm. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm here to return something. I lifted the folder halfway off my side, not a threat, a promise. He blanched. What is that? I smiled faintly. Your resume. He tried a laugh. It cracked halfway out of his mouth. You have no idea what kind of mistake you're making. Unless you want Brittany to open it first, I said sharply, step aside. He hesitated, then moved. Not out of shame. Out of fear. He knew exactly what was in that file. Inside, Brittany was stirring something on the stove, wearing leggings, a long sweater, her hair pulled back. Our mom would have taken a photo and said she looked so grown up. When she saw me standing in the living room, everything froze. Her smile flickered. Morgan, what are you? I came to give you something. Tyler dove in. She's trying to cause problems, he said quickly. It's all out of context. Brittany's eyes bounced between us. What's going on? I dropped the folder onto the dining table. Mom sent this, I said simply. The room snapped into stillness. Brittany's face paled. Mom. Tyler's voice cracked. She hates me. No, I said, she just didn't trust what you were hiding. Brittany stepped toward the table, hand hovering over the folder like it might explode. Don't, Tyler said sharply, chest puffed. Brittany, don't read that, it's not what. She opened it. No one spoke as page after page flipped between her fingers, eyes scanning, hands trembling. Loans, defaults, failed companies, new debt. His application in her name. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She whispered, "Tyler. Britt, baby, listen, I just needed a jump start, something for us, for our life together." "No," she said, voice cracking as she looked up. "For you, for your mess." He turned toward me now, rage twisting his mouth. "You did this, you want to destroy me." I didn't blink. "You did that yourself when you filled out a legal document with your wife's name on it." He flinched, his fists balled. But he didn't move toward me, he moved toward her. "No, Brittany," he begged, trying to reach for her wrist. "She's infected you again, made you cold, made you like." I stepped between them in a second. Harder voice now, colder. "Touch her again and I'll walk this folder to her employer, her bank, and every investor you've pitched that app idea to." He stopped. Dead silent. That was his tell. He wasn't scared of losing Brittany. He was scared of losing access. Brittany didn't even look at him. "Get out of my house," she whispered. He blinked. "What?" She turned, stronger now, steady. "You heard me. Britt, where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem." He stepped toward her one last time, furious. "Your mom will hate you for this." "No," Brittany said, eyes shining but clear. "She'll finally understand why Morgan didn't come for Thanksgiving." He left. No shouting this time. No banging doors. Just silence and regret. The kind that lingers. Brittany stood there, arms folded over herself, like if she let go, she might fall apart. Then she looked at me. Tender. Tired. "Why didn't you ever tell us what you really do?" I met her gaze. "Because no one ever asked." She broke then. Came toward me and hugged me like she'd never seen me before, not as the Mrs. Most Family Dinner's sister, not the too serious one. But the only one who told the truths. "I'll stay for dinner," she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "I'm here." But deep inside I wasn't done. Because Tyler thought the embarrassment ended with this. Expose the lies, confront the fraud, kick him out. He thought that was the worst it'd get. But he had no idea what was waiting for him on Thanksgiving morning. And this time it wouldn't be personal. It would be public. The next morning the silence felt different. Not suffocating, clear, like every voice that ever doubted me had finally gone quiet. Thanksgiving had arrived with the usual cold bite in the air, the scent of spices and roasted memories likely floating through Mom's kitchen, but I didn't feel warmth when I looked at the clock. I felt resolve. Outside, the city was still waking up, but I'd been up for hours, dressed in a fitted navy suit, hair pulled back, heels sharpened to a point, not to attack. To arrive as myself, unapologetically. Because Tyler thought he erased me from the narrative by writing me out of a meal. He never imagined I'd rewrite the entire story by walking in with something bigger than a seat at the table. The truth. And this time I wouldn't be banging on the door. I'd be welcomed in. The folder, the same one my mother secretly commissioned, filled with Tyler's debts and deceptions, was in the passenger seat beside me, still sealed tight in its legal envelope, but I wasn't walking into this house to pass it around like gossip. The truth had already hit Brittany. The damage was done. Today I was showing up for clarity. I wasn't going to blow anyone's cover. I was going to claim my place and let them all wonder what changed, how it changed, and why I stood taller than they remembered. Because people love you quiet until you walk in unchanged by their absence. When I pulled into Mom's driveway, I noticed a new SUV. Tyler's gone. Good. The scent of sweet potatoes and sage turkey drifted through the open kitchen window. Someone was laughing inside, one of my aunts maybe. The same old house, the same old gathering. But when I stepped onto the porch, something shifted. The front door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there. Eyes wide, shoulders braced like she'd seen a ghost. "Morgan," she whispered, her lips only half moving. I smiled politely, surprised. She blinked, voice trembling. "I didn't know you were coming." I met her eyes. "And yet I think you hoped I would." She stepped back, wordless, letting me in. Inside, the house felt exactly how I remembered. The smell, the clustered chatter, the rustling of full-covered platters and folding chairs squeezing into corners, but this time, for once, I didn't feel small. Every eye in the room turned to me. Some widened. Some narrowed. All paused. Aunt Sheila whispered under her breath, "I thought she wasn't coming." Uncle Dan blinked like he'd seen someone famous. A cousin raised an eyebrow and mouthed, "Whoa." But then Brittany walked in from the hallway, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Head high. Her jaw set, her gaze locked on mine. She didn't say a word, just came across the room and hugged me like it was the most normal thing in the world. The room froze. Mom practically gasped. "She told me everything," Brittany said softly but firmly, letting the air clear without apology, "and I'm glad you're here." Mom stared between us, eyes filling faster than her next breath. "You knew?" she asked Brittany, voice breaking. Brittany nodded. "She showed me the file, the one you sent." Silence. Actual silence. Then Mom's eyes shifted to me. The fear inside them was deeper than embarrassment. It was relief. "What was he going to do with my daughter's name?" she asked quietly. I walked over and handed her the folder. "You were right to be afraid," I said gently, "but you were wrong to keep it from us." She opened it slowly, her hands shook. One look was enough. "He filed a loan using her name," she whispered in horror. "Oh my God, Morgan, why didn't I just call you?" I sighed, not angry, just tired. "You thought telling the truth would tear us apart," I replied, but keeping it in silence almost let him destroy her completely. For a long moment, the room was nothing but the buzz of the oven timer, a cough from the living room, a child running down the hallway. Then she looked up from the file and said it out loud, the words I thought I'd never hear. "I'm so sorry, honey," she whispered. "I knew something was wrong with him, but instead of trusting you, I shut you out." That was the moment. That was the real confrontation. Not with shouting or doors slammed or egos bruised, but with truths spoken plainly. I pulled in a breath but let it out slowly. "I'm not upset," I said. Not a lie, just not simple. But the next time something scares you, instead of telling people to stay away, ask for help. Her eyes closed for a second, as if those words struck something in her bones. Then she stepped forward and hugged me, fully, fiercely. Like a mother hugging a daughter she hadn't seen clearly in a decade. "Get in here," she whispered into my hair. "Sit down, no more excuses, no more distance." "Mom's about to burn the turkey again," Brittany called from the kitchen. I laughed. The real kind. And without effort, we moved. Back into the rhythm of family, not perfect, not painless, but honest, closer now. Around the dinner table, people joked, wine poured, pie was swapped 3 times because Aunt Sheila got Chardonnay aggressive again. But no one questioned why I had returned. They didn't dare. For once, I wasn't the late arrival. I was the woman everyone was watching. Not out of suspicion, but respect. There's a kind of silence that only power can earn, and I wasn't talking about a title or a desk with a skyline view. I meant the quiet acknowledgement that happens when you walk into a room no longer apologizing for being more than they expected. As the plates finally emptied and the table quieted beneath soft conversation and past desserts, I glanced around the room. My mom was smiling genuinely. My sister stood taller. Tyler was gone. And I was still here. I didn't steal the spotlight. I didn't make a speech. I didn't even mention the folder again. Because unlike Tyler, I didn't need a meltdown to make myself unforgettable. All I had to do was stand still and let the truth speak. Thanksgiving morning had taken everything apart. But by the end of the night, it had finally put something back together, the truth. And not just mine. Brittany's, Mom's, even the family's. But Tyler was exactly where he belonged now, on the outside of the truth he tried to destroy. Back at my place later that night, I stood at the window overlooking the city. My entire floor glowed with quiet warmth, a skyline I helped build, glass towers I had led from blueprint to ribbon cutting. Funny. All this time, my family thought they knew who I was. They saw appointments on calendars, not accomplishments. They mistook my silence for awkwardness, my absence for apathy. They just never asked. And I'd stopped offering. But now they'd seen it for themselves, not just the office, the team, the title. They'd sign me. Fully, finally. When you grow up always having to prove your worth, you eventually learn that the most powerful thing you can do is not explain at all. Just show up when it matters. And then let your presence do what your words never could. The next day, I got a call from Jenna. She sounded barely able to contain herself. "You're gonna want to sit down for this," she said. "Remember Tyler's little app project, the one he wanted investors for?" "Unfortunately," I muttered. Well, this morning his proposal hit a brick wall. I raised an eyebrow. Jenna kept going. One of the firms he cold pitched last week, they flagged his file. Guess who they checked with for a background reference? I laughed. Falcon Ridge. Bingo. He used your name as a character endorsement, she added. Typed your full name and division role under professional contact. Of course he did. Men like Tyler only respect power when they think they can use it to climb. You didn't respond, did you? I asked. I didn't have to, legal did, she replied. Short statement, just the truth. I exhaled slowly. Good. Because I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And the thing about the truth is, once it starts moving, it doesn't need your hands, it moves on its own. Jenna added, he sent an email this morning, sounded halfway between desperate and psychotic, asked why you'd sabotage him. I didn't sabotage him, I replied simply. I just stopped protecting him from himself. He tried to play the long game, to tie himself to people who had bigger names than him, as if proximity to success was the same as earning it. But that's the problem with people like Tyler. All their moves are about control. And when they realize you're the one actually holding the map, they fall apart. A week later, Mom and Brittany came by my place. It was quiet. Soft. No big speeches, just takeout blankets and music playing in the background. We didn't need to recap the drama. The silence was cozy, not cold. Eventually, Brittany broke the quiet. Mom told me you've been at Falcon Ridge since you were 28, she said, managing multi-million-dollar developments, buildings I've literally driven past without knowing you built them. I gave a small smile. It was never a secret, I said. I just stopped offering pieces of myself that nobody seemed interested in. She bit her bottom lip and looked down. I really didn't know how much I didn't know about you. I know, I said. Then she added, but I want to know. That part mattered. Mom chimed in, voice soft but clear. You always felt unreachable, like no matter how much we tried to make things feel like home, you were already building something else. I nodded. Because I had to. And she added quietly, maybe we made home a place you didn't feel seen. I looked at her, a little surprised by how honest she finally was. And I let my walls drop just a bit as I answered. You didn't lose me, Mom, you just didn't think I needed to be understood. She wiped a tear. We kept eating. Later, as they were leaving, Brittany hugged me tight. Longer this time. And for once, she didn't look like the golden child holding pity in her arms. She looked like someone standing next to her sister. Grateful. Strong. Even. I'm thinking about reapplying to grad school, she whispered. I smiled. Do it, don't let who you were stuck with stop you from becoming someone new. After they left, I stood at the glass wall again, watching the city breathe. It used to feel like the only place that saw me. Tonight, I realized maybe I had room in both worlds. My empire and my origin. As long as I stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. Here's the thing about the revenge Tyler thought he was avoiding. It wasn't public humiliation. It wasn't the confrontation in my office. It wasn't even being outed at his own dinner table. The real revenge was peace. It was a stillness. It was smiling on Thanksgiving without waiting to be included, because now they finally knew they needed me there. And I didn't need them to say it. I already had everything I used to fight for. Respect. Belonging. And most of all, freedom. That's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes the best payback is becoming the version of yourself they never saw coming. And not apologizing for her.